Hi, it's Colette Mason here, book coach and owner of indie publisher Let's Tell Your Story. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about why I think thud factor books should die. At this time of year, November, if you're interested in writing a book, you've probably seen all the buzz around NaNoWriMo or the Write a Novel in a Month Global Challenge. This is where you have 30 days to write a book in November, and the target word count you're aiming for is 50,000 words. But is that sensible? How long should a good book be? My first book, Social Media Success in 7 Days, ran at around 45,000 words. My latest book, Launch Your Book, is 27,000 words. I chose to publish a shorter book, but why? People wonder, isn't there a risk that a thin book means a dumbed down book? Well, I think not. My goal when I'm writing is to clearly define what my readers need to achieve, and then I decide how I give them the information to help them to do that in the best possible format, whether that's pictures, words, tables, lists, diagrams, exploded 3D charts, whatever it happens to be. Clearly, I need to pick the quickest and easiest format for them that I can, otherwise I run the risk of creating a slow and difficult experience for them. That's no good for them because they don't achieve what matters to them without a lot of hassle, or perhaps they give up. And it's no good for me because they decide I'm a hopeless teacher. Your question when planning your book content should always be, how do I give the skills and knowledge that they need in the fewest possible words? If you're not addressing that, being ruthless with the brevity of your explanation, then sadly in the mind of your reader, you're not adding value, you're adding padding and filler. The well-known best-selling book, Who Moved My Cheese, has around 16,000 words, and that's it. Readers didn't care about it being short. What they did care about was it helping them to get to a result that mattered to them. It was more like a special magazine feature, I suppose, than a real book, but it sold well, and it explained to readers what they needed to know in the shortest time with minimal fuss. Studies have shown that people's attention spans have progressively shrunk over time. The infamously feeble-minded goldfishes managed an attention span of around 9 seconds, but according to Microsoft, who studied some Canadians, sorry Canadian people now generally lose their concentration after just 8 seconds. This highlights the effects an increasingly technologically fueled lifestyle has on our brains. Microsoft found that since the year 2000, which was roughly when the mobile revolution began, that the average attention span dropped from 12 seconds down to 8. Researchers found the ability to maintain prolonged focus during repetitive tasks, such as reading, showed roughly half the respondents struggled with that. 44% of Canadians really have to concentrate hard to stay focused on particular tasks. 45% get sidetracked when they're doing something with unrelated thoughts or daydreaming. 37% don't make the best use of the time that they have available and end up having to work late or put in extra effort in order to just stand still. The demographics suggest that the young and the tech-savvy are most affected by this problem. The average person who's reading your non-fiction book is bombarded with information like emails, texts, social media, podcasts, videos, phone calls, smartphones, magazines, TV, friends and family reminders, as well as the environmental things like paying attention when you're pouring boiling water and remembering you've got an appointment coming up soon. This constant bombardment is exhausting, disruptive and distracting when it comes to getting something done like reading or learning. Plus, over time, thanks to brain plasticity, our mental faculties actually adapt to suit the environment in which we find ourselves, and we're becoming progressively more skilled at multitasking and short bursts of attention and quickly ruling out or ruling in whether or not something matters to us within the blink of an eye. Alas, when people consciously attempt to focus on things are a struggle. Another study in 2000, reported on by the Associated Press, suggested that the average attention span for somebody in the office concentrating on a task was around 12 minutes. Skip ahead 10 years, if you pardon the pun, to 2008, and that's down to just 5 minutes before they find themselves seriously distracted. Studies on email habits have shown that long emails are often abandoned within 30 seconds of reading or less, and I can see that becoming even less in the future. If the reader can't see the point of the email is because it's long-winded and rambling, they just give up. Same thing with books. Jakob Nielsen analysed data from a study called Not Quite Average, an empirical study of web use, and this was written by 4 German academics. and they studied how people read information on the internet back in 1998. And they said that if you had a web page with around about 110 words on it, the reader would only read 49% of the words on that page. If it was a typical web page with, say, roughly 600 words on it, they would only read 28% of the words on that page, because they're skimming, they're looking for the nuggets that matter, they're looking to see if it's worth reading the thing in detail and so on. They're just not reading word for word. As authors, it's important to us that we pass on our knowledge and skills to other people, and we must share the learnings that have come from the hard yards that we've put in to shortcut others on their routes to success. However, that desire to help doesn't give you permission to overdo your elaborations and your explanations in your book. Every piece of information must be clear, concise, and have a purpose. Quite often, less is more. Coupled with a shorter attention span comes the concept of readability, a measure of how well a written word can be understood. Prose with long words and sentences is penalised because it takes longer to understand the message. It's more difficult for people to understand what you mean when you use long sentences bursting with long words. Similarly, shorter words are easier to understand than long words, which is ideal for the tired minds of our readers who are constantly drowning in this information soup that surrounds them. Reduce your word count and check the word length in each and every sentence in your book. Check you're still making each point clearly. This, of course, reduces the entire word count of your whole book without dumbing down the quality of the information. It makes your book lean, mean, and fun to use, engaging for the reader, which is great. It's okay to be bite-sized with your book. As a non-fiction writer, I think you should always be practicing creating the biggest impact with the fewest amount of words. Your readers will love you for it. The fiction authors have a different challenge. They're there to entertain. They're there to explain the mood, create a scene, elaborate on what characters look like and so on, and help fill in the minds of the reader so there's no gaps. But for non-fiction readers, they tend to know a bit about the subject already. They can imagine quite a lot, even if they've not mastered it. Let's say I'm writing a book on how to write a good presentation. My readers will have had some experience working with presentation text, however fraught that experience might have been, and they will have attended other people's presentations online and offline. They'll have seen presentations on the TV, at work, and so on. So they have lots of relevant information already buzzing around in their head, and it's my job to teach them how to use those concepts and communicate effectively. They just need some simple processes and some hints and tips to get them going along in the right direction. And a few minutes spent reading the book would save them lots of time wandering around on the internet, fighting through all that information soup, looking for definitive, good quality answers. Always remember the value of your delete key. Look at every sentence and delete anything that you don't need. Remove any needless words. If you use 2 or 3 sentences to make a point, see if you can make it in 1. Always look to trim the fat in your work. Before you despair and think the world's in danger of being overtaken by some particularly brainy goldfish somewhere, then there are trends that suggest that humans might be fighting back against this lack of attention. The slow reading movement is gathering momentum, just like slow food and slow travel. And let's remember the propensity for people to sit down and watch an entire TV box set in an afternoon. That trend is actually increasing. I wonder which side of our brains will win over time, or perhaps we get the benefits of both. Thanks for watching. I'm Colette Mason, book coach and owner of Let's Tell Your Story Publishing, and I'll see you on another video.